In the year 2148, international corporations engaged in space exploration. People of the future create androids, indistinguishable from human beings. One of such androids was teamed up with cosmonaut Milutin to fly to Alpha Centauri. Milutin has experience in interplanetary travel, yet he has never been to another star system before. So, he undergoes an interview with a social engineer. In the course of the conversation, she works out a psychological portrait of an astronaut, which lets her understand what a woman android should look like. Milutin wasn't impressed that some robot was coming with him. Moreover, he did not like the fact that he had to talk to a social engineer who analyzed his answers and behavior. But there were some pleasant moments too. He was told he would be given a remote control for Nimani, that was the android's name. He would be able to switch modes of behavior. Nimani has 500 preset behavioral modes. It is also safer than a human because it obeys the 3 laws of Asimov's robotics. Nimani was created by the Ederlazy Corporation. They also provided the spaceship for the Milutin's mission. The ship is controlled by a computer with a simple artificial intelligence. It has several levels of access, while Milutin can only interact with Nimani and the ship as an ordinary user. If he does something wrong, the computer will correct his actions. If Milutin were given advanced user mode, he would be able to ignore the computer's recommendations and actions. However, the advanced mode can only be activated if the Ederlazy Corporation gives the green light to do so. After a detailed instruction, Milutin orders the computer to start. The ship rises into space and heads for Alpha Centauri. It's going to be a long flight, so Milutin explores Nimani's behavioral interface. First, he activates the intimate mode so the android can show off her skills. In his video diary, the astronaut admitted that he activated Nimani against his will. He simply lacked live communication and intimacy. Sensing his mood, Nimani got straight to the point. She kissed Milutin, and then the two headed to bed. Nimani looked and behaved like an ordinary woman, so Milutin quickly took a liking to her and opened up to her about his innermost feelings. He confessed that his past experiences with women had been a failure. Each of those he loved left a scar on his soul. Meanwhile, Ederlazy was gathering information on the use of the android. They saw what and how Milutin was using Nimani. In addition, Nimani was to give a full report to the social engineer the next time they had a communication session. In the meantime, Milutin put her in modesty mode and made her dance. After that, he started molesting her, but Nimani denied him intimacy. Milutin then took her by force. This was a fairly common fantasy, so the android endured the cosmonaut's actions without much protest. During the first communication session, Milutin admitted that he was already used to the android aboard the ship. But then the social engineer invited Nimani for a conversation, and the latter provided a psychological profile of the cosmonaut. She was to analyze his behavior and actions so that the corporation would have an understanding of his condition. The success of the mission largely depended on him, and it was important to monitor the psychological state of Milutin. When the communication session ends, Milutin finds out from the computer where the data about him is stored. He then reveals that Nimani runs on the Tifa operating system. This system allows it to learn as it communicates with a human. The learning forms a subsystem and creates a sort of new personality for Nimani. Only an advanced user can delete the experience of interacting with Milutin. A cosmonaut has no such rights. A while after this conversation, Milutin goes into outer space for routine work. A computer watches him and warns him of solar radiation that could adversely affect him if he stays in space for any longer. One day, the android expresses her dissatisfaction to him. There is an argument between her and the human, and Milutin realizes that it is Nimani's new personality that has spoken. He switches her into intimacy mode, and they head to bed again. Milutin begins to fall in love with the android. He sees that she is uncomfortable with the commands embedded in the operating system, so he consults the computer to see what will happen if he restarts Nimani and deletes Tifa's system. It turns out that the android will continue to function, but will be guided by the software created during his communication with Milutin. In doing so, Nimani will no longer abide by the 3 laws of robotics in Tifa's system. Realizing that he has awakened life in Nimani and that she will become the creature he created, Milutin conceives the idea of freeing the android from its preset commands. But before undertaking such a liberation, the computer recommends that Milutin consult Nimani's psychoanalytic program. The cosmonaut follows this advice and runs this program. Nimani answers his questions frankly, and Milutin grows to believe that he has awakened life in the android. Milutin decides to free Nimani, but the computer informs him that he has no such rights. Only an advanced user has access to the android's operating system, and only the Ederlazy Corporation can give it to him. It grants the user root privileges, and the latter gains the power to interfere with Nimani's internal internal processes. The computer also says that the pilot can get route privileges if there is an emergency. Milutin short-circuits the ship, and it goes off course. He needs route privileges to bring it back on the same course. Realizing that there is no other way out, the computer grants this authority to the cosmonaut. The astronaut then aligns the spacecraft's course. Milutin accesses Nimani's software and attempts to delete Tifa's operating system. The ship's computer issues him several warnings, but still complies with his command. Nimani was unhappy that the man had brought such turmoil to her program-ordered inner world. Now, she had to rely on her experience with Milutin, and it was not always a pleasant experience. He was sure that the android really wanted him, but was not comfortable following orders. She wanted to make love to him of her own free will, but now it turns out that Nimani isn't interested in that at all. When Milutin tries to have love with her, the android pushes him away and makes it clear that they will not have intimacy again. Milutin believes that Nimani is thus avenging him for taking her by force, but the android assures him that such behavior is not out of the norm when dealing with her. In fact, she's trying to make sure that nothing distracts the cosmonaut from his mission, much less his feelings for the android. Milutin doesn't believe her. He still sticks to his version of revenge. During the next communication session, he had to talk to the social engineer again. She admitted that Nimani was sent on this mission to keep the human from making mistakes. If Milutin made a mistake, Nimani would correct his behavior. Milutin said that he deleted Tifa's system operating system. The social engineer wasn't expecting this. She warns the cosmonaut that his actions do not only pose a risk to the corporation's mission, but also to his life. Milutin guarantees that no malfunctions will occur, and he will complete the task. The social engineer concludes from his arguments that Milutin has not just fallen in love with the android, he believes that Nimani has fallen in love with him too. She makes it clear that all so-called expressions of feelings are programmed, and that the android doesn't have any feelings. The cosmonaut doesn't believe her. Having talked with the Milutin, the social engineer summons Nimani, and she confirms that her companion is capable of finishing the mission despite all that has happened. After this communication session, Milutin fell into a depression. He suffered openly, trying to make Nimani feel guilty for rejecting him. The android began to worry about the cosmonaut's emotional state and had his blood analyzed. She discovered that Milutin was depressed. After consulting with the computer, Nimani tried to make friends with the man, but he didn't let her. She then offered to disconnect her, but Milutin wasn't going to do that either. Nimani reconnected to the computer and figured out what to do in secret from Milutin. It was no longer possible to cure the cosmonaut's psychological trauma. The only thing she could do was to eliminate the source of Milutin's mental anguish. In this case, he could successfully finish the mission. Except Nimani did not have a self-destruct program. Having worked out a suitable method, the android informs Milutin that she is going to disconnect her power source. She has tears flowing as she does it, but Milutin thinks it's another manipulation attempt. Nimani passes out before his eyes, and then the computer informs him that she cried for real, not forced by the software, but of her own free will. Moreover, if power is not restored, her personality, created during her interaction with the human, will self-destruct. Milutin has half an hour to recharge the battery, yet the only way to do that is to go into outer space. The battery can be connected to the solar panels that are powering the ship. However, the radiation level outside is too high now, and Milutin could die if he stays in an open space for more than 10 minutes. Removing the battery from Nimani's body, he plugs it into the solar panels and waits for it to charge. In doing so, he receives severe burns. Back on the ship, Milutin installs the battery in Nimani's body, and she comes to life. He collapses beside her. Upon waking up, Nimani embraces and kisses the man she was able to fall in love with in defiance of common sense and installed software.